The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hoop Ball. Starting today's show by just yelling the name of the website. Hoop Ball. Remember, Brew, when we used to do like 30 seconds of us just saying Hoop Ball in the middle of shows? Those are the days.
You got a Peter Griffin hoop ball?
You mean like, should I try to do one?
I just assume you've got a bag of tricks.
That's a tough one because most of his funny, like the Peter Griffin noises are more in this octave, and so hoop ball, it's hard to get up.
There you go, buddy.
I feel like,
I knew you had it in you.
I almost feel like I should try to perfect a Herbert hoop ball for the show, and that'll be the real.
Yeah, go for it.
No, that one doesn't have any S's. I need things that have the trademark hoop ball.
There you go.
Sweet Jesus. Welcome, everybody. It's a Fantasy NBA Today. What the hell's the name of this show? I'm Dan Besbris. He's Aaron Bruski, the big dog in town. El Arquitecto. That's right. The big dog is barking. He's ready to roll. His hair is poofy today. You can't see it because this is a recorded episode, but that's a good sign. That means Brew is rolling.
I have good hair. What can I say?
Yeah, it's coming in hot today. Brew, good morning to you.
And to you too, sir.
Yeah, a tip of the cap. A tip of the cap to you. You used to say that too on the show. You like to tip the cap.
I do. You know, I like riding my old-timey bike around town with my top hat and my monocle.
Yeah.
I have a monocle.
Brew's monocle is the bee's knees. When you're talking about that, as long as we're doing like Family Guy references, you're, I assume, referring to those two pint-sized fellows that ride the giant wheel, tiny wheel bicycle around town. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't actually, but I'm imagining. Yeah, it's got to be the big wheel, you know, and then the tiny wheel.
Yeah, big wheel, tiny wheel.
Wait, was the tiny wheel in back though, or is that
so.
like a new school thing?
I think the tiny wheel goes in back. Tiny wheel in front would be real difficult to steer.
Yeah, they were just experimenting, man. They just whatever they could think of.
Whatever
just
wheel,
a bike.
You got a wheel, throw it on this bad boy. Let's see what happens. Let's talk fantasy sports. But before we do, I want to remind everybody to please, if you have a moment, rate and review the podcast. Well, don't do it right now, because right now you're thinking, what the crap are these two guys talking about? Wait until the end of the episode when you're thinking, lovely fantasy information. And then rate and review the podcast. Every one of those is helpful for us, as I've said it before. It is the lifeblood of Fantasy NBA Today, and since we're at that juncture of the season now where, you know, we're through a lot of our promos, and so it's time for me to just beg. So, as I've said before, on bended knee, please rate and review the podcast on whatever service you may use. Brew, it's been another interesting, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I like it. This is fun. This is a time of year where weird stuff is happening, which is a pain, but it also leads to just a flurry of interesting pickups, and we're going to go through all of them. But I got to start with the Pelicans. I have to start with the Pelicans because it's just so weird. I mean, how could I really start a show where we're talking about what's going on in the NBA without discussing the evolving Anthony Davis saga? Things haven't changed all that much. I'll give you this. Over the last 7 days, he's still in that 20-minute window, and things have been pretty clearly elucidated now. He's not playing the fourth quarter. He's not playing on back-to-backs. But the problem is that our hope of someone sort of emerging to take his other 28 minutes hasn't really played itself out. And then outside of Drew Holiday, Julius Randle, and maybe Elfrid Payton, it's just like weird mishmashes of 15 to 20 minutes apiece for everybody else. That sucks. I really wanted somebody to step up, and they haven't so far.
Yeah, and I think if Anthony Davis sits for whatever reason, you're going to see this Pelicans team have that. It's not even really injured star theory. It's something else. I don't think he. Well, it's hard to say this stuff, but like, if I'm a teammate of Anthony Davis right now, I'm pissed. You know, just get out of the way. You know, I'm sure he's got some friends on the team that think it's a business, and you know they probably know more than everybody else knows. But yeah, it's ugly there. I would still expect if he gets the slightest injury that gives the league the ammo they need to tell everybody to shut up. You're not seeing too many more media people try to come out and defend this. I thought it was pretty embarrassing when you saw media members that are obviously trying to cozy up to the Davis camp try to say that this is a good thing. Everything you're seeing from heavy hitters out there, important is when the heavy hitters speak up, sometimes the needle moves here. Most of the heavy hitters have talked about what a ridiculous embarrassment this is. And so if he does get that one little thing, or you get closer to the season and, there's 10 games left, 15 games left, positions could soften a little bit in the Davis camp. And then you get the open door. But right now it's just a tough night to night thing. Jahlil Okafor, 3 minutes. Ouch.
Yeah. What the heck, man?
Jack Diallo, 15 minutes. He was kind of good in those 15 minutes. But still, it's just, you had Anthony Davis in Los Angeles scoring 2 points and the Lakers scoreboard people giving the 2 points to the Lakers. That's what kind of night it was.
Well, that's what
the kind of circus we're in right now.
And that's what the ESPN broadcasters were doing too. There was it was during the LeBron one-footed falling out of bounds fadeaway to lock up the game when they cut to Anthony Davis making that come on face. And then I didn't watch that game live on ESPN. I had it on Sportsnet LA here because I didn't realize it was the national game, and I'll regret it forever having to listen to the Lakers broadcasters more than I had to. So I missed it live, but then I heard on one of the clips the analyst. I don't know who the color commentator was on that particular broadcast. Someone listening probably does, but he said something like, "Oh, Anthony Davis is just thinking, man, I hope you do that when you're my teammate next year." And I'm like, good Lord, people, can we like try not to do this for just a few seconds? Whatever. I don't know. It just seemed...
Well, you can't, though. I mean, it's here's the thing. I always bring this back to the fans. And, one of the reasons I got really interested in the Sacramento Kings story about 6, 7, 8 years ago, or however long ago it was, is that there was a fan base getting screwed, and it was, in this case, the Pelicans. If you're a Pelicans fan, how terrible must it be to watch games? You're just sitting there going, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt. For a guy that's left the court about an average of 1.5 or a time every 1.5 games. That's got to be gut-wrenching when the balance of your franchise is hanging on what is essentially a couple of morons, making decisions and making everybody else live with it. And last point on this is really screwed Anthony Davis as well. He's screwed himself. This isn't his camp, by the way. This is him. He's a smart dude. A lot of people think, oh, this is aw shucks Anthony Davis. No, he's a smart dude. He knows what he's doing, but he's screwed himself here. There is nothing good happening to him, his image, around the league. Is it going to make a big deal? Who knows? But this kind of thing, he looks like a self-interested kind of moron, because if he gets hurt, there's no upside for anybody involved, and then he becomes a part of an even bigger story. So it's bad, but I do think, to kind of put a bow on the Pelicans, I do think there's a pretty good chance that he gives in. And then you start to see a lot of these peripheral guys have a clean ramp to play some kind of garbage, tiny games, but some, potentially high-scoring games.
Is Diallo the guy?
I think it's actually both of them. Diallo and Okafor, I think you probably see in sort of a 1-2 combo. And I think both can get around 27 minutes per game in this scenario where Anthony Davis is gone and they've sort of cleared it out and they want to see these two guys play. But here's the other thing about Okafor that really screwed him at the trade deadline. Danny Ferry is now running this team. Danny Ferry is a dookie who's close with Adam Silver, which might give you some insight as to why they're playing ball over there. His guys might not be Jahlil Okafor. He put out a list of guys that would get minutes. And Jahlil Okafor wasn't on it. And this is a guy that was averaging like almost 20 and 10 for a good 8-game stretch. You brought him in. You're the guy. Dell Demps brought him in. You're the guy that should get the kudos. Or you're the team that should get the kudos. Look at this smart move we made, and he's not even on your list. So the Jahlil Okafor position has been extremely weakened here by a curious set of events, and Danny Ferry is sort of sitting at the middle of them. But I do, look at this roster. Unless you really are going to say we're playing Randall at the 5 because we really don't want to play Jahlil Okafor, there are no other centers. I could easily see Okafor and Diallo splitting center minutes, and that could be good for both of them.
Yeah, on the Faried front as well, obviously he's a guy who's trying to get back into the league's good graces. He was sort of drummed out of Atlanta after racist emails, as I recall. So it doesn't seem like the guy to put his foot down against whatever the league is looking for as well. So we'll obviously keep a close watch on that. Let's go from the Pelicans to something good, and that is, it seems like Nico Mirotic is fitting in pretty well in Milwaukee. What are your hopes for him the rest of the season? I think when we talked right after the trade, we were thinking, if he can stay inside the top 80, top 90, that would be nice. It seems like maybe he could go higher than that.
Yeah, they've really embraced him, which is wise. He brings a lot of spacing for Giannis. There's a lot of apprehension about playing Giannis too many minutes down the stretch. So if you own Giannis, you're a little bit concerned because he's taken time off. He played just 24 minutes in that Kings game. Didn't play in the overtime period until the final play. So if, Giannis is out, you've got a huge upside, there for Mirotic in any games or minutes that Giannis doesn't play. But then aside from that, he's got a pretty green light. He fits that system really well. So you're going to start to see, whether it's 22 minutes per game, you're going to see these big lines. I shouldn't say start to see, you're already seeing it. Big lines, and if he gets up into that 28 minutes per game range, he can absolutely, touch, say, top 50, top 40. So it's been a good thing for him because, you just never know when a player gets traded. We've always said that Nico's game travels pretty well, but it's actually traveling really well here. So, yeah, good for him.
Even better. Kevin Love is the next guy on my topic list. I got a whole bunch of things today, Bruce. Fear not. I'm loaded for bear for things to discuss.
But you woke me up with the Pelican stuff, I didn't even need the Hawaiian Isles Kona coffee.
Yeah, well, maybe you will as we get through this list because some of this stuff is a little bit dense. This is not that dense. This is sort of the checkup, which is coming out of the All-Star break. I was needlessly optimistic, I think, on Kevin Love, way more than almost anybody else that I had spoken with, and I felt pretty silly. But then all of a sudden now, he's ramped up pretty nicely. I would expect him to miss one of their upcoming back-to-back, but who knows? Maybe he'll even play in both. He said he wanted to play in all of their games since the All-Star break. So far, he's 4 for 4. Is there a world where he only misses the back-to-backs the rest of the way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, if it's going well, he wants to play, then, they'll just keep throwing him out there. It's going to be a tough one, owners, it's going to seem really good, 26-8 in his last game. You say, hey, you know what? This could run the entire distance. You're not going to feel good about it until the season is over.
Right.
So, I mean, just do whatever you do, sacrifice a chicken. Don't sacrifice. Don't do that.
Goat? Maybe a goat.
Yeah. Whatever you do it, because if he's going to stay in the lineup, he's going to be good, and that's going to be that. But it's Cleveland. I look
they're
at that.
winning. They're winning.
Yeah,
they're winning games. It's a terrible decision.
Healthy right now, actually. So that's just weird.
It's real weird.
What goes up must come down. It's just a question of now. 20 games left. Does it happen fast? Does it happen at the end of this thing? So. I would say those last 2 weeks, those last 6 to 8 games are really at risk for him. But for right now, the next 2 to 3 weeks, he should be good to go.
What about some of these other guys? And it could be even related to Kevin Love. We've seen Cedi Osman playing better of late. We've seen Larry Nance not playing particularly well. We're seeing Ante Zizic still getting some minutes. The guard situation in Cleveland continues to be a relative mess outside of points leagues. Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton. I guess I do have a couple of questions on these guys individually. Do the Cavs just want to protect Larry Nance? Why is it that he can only get his minutes when everybody else is hurt? I don't get that.
He's a guy, he's on a pitch count, basically. He's never been able to handle more than like 22 minutes per game. So there's been games when he's gone over that, and I wonder if this is them pulling him back now, saying, hey, you know what, we just don't want to burn you out, and that's my theory there. He is the quintessential, we've said this 5 million times, top 100 guy. That's really kind of what he is, and he's been better than that this year. So I think you kind of got to put up with it. When Larry Nance hit the wire in some of our ringer leagues, the high stakes leagues, he got scooped up real quick. And I would love to have that on my bench if I'm not, concerned about like everyday immediate production. Is he like a must start player? Probably not. You just don't know when that dip is coming. But when he's good, he's real good. So you kind of want to just deal with that. The rest of the guys, it's so just Colin Sexton had 22 points the other night and practically nothing else. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, is that the best you got? And it probably is. So the rest of them are all, Chetty Osman. I think he might be helped, like a lot of them. He might be helped by the fact that Kevin Love's on the floor and making the game easier for everybody involved. Tristan Thompson is just sort of out there looming. You would think he wants to come back. Like, why work out all this time, the way he has been working out, if you're not planning on coming back at least at some point. So I kind of think that his return could be lingering out there in like the next week or two. He might be saying, hey, I want to just get some, 5 to 10 games on the floor before we hit the summer, so I don't have this huge gap in games played. So a lot of stuff could go on there still. I'm not on anybody's hype train except maybe Jordan Clarkson, and he's not really.
Would you what about like a late keeper? We're going to go real deep. Is Colin Sexton have any appeal for next year? Could he fix his field goal percent? Could he add a steal? Any of those things possible?
He might have to change locales to get a steal, to get the steals where we want them. His stat set coming out of school was not good, and we've seen a continuation of that. Yeah. He's a guy that's playing position defense out there. And that's unfortunate for fantasy owners because, he is known as a defender. That's his strength heading into this league. So he needs to get to a team that's going to gamble, and he needs other good defenders around him. So those are the keys, I think, to his value. But yeah, I'm not really impressed there. I mean, you want any good young player in a dynasty league. Don't get me wrong. But as far as like, is this going to explode into something that would be like early round or early mid-round? I don't think it's going to get there.
All right, moving along from the Cavaliers, let's head to our next destination, and I'd rather do something a little bit... Oh, I don't know. There's nothing simple on this list. Let's go to something that I know is going to bring a smile to your face, the Washington Wizards, because Bench Bryant is a really neat iteration of Thomas Bryant. Suddenly, like, what a weird phenomenon here that he was sent to the bench and his minutes have trended up. Scott Brooks is a crazy person. Wow, could I have said that in some other way?
He should have just stitched Perkins on the back of his jersey.
Yeah, that's a way. That'll get you 22.
Like one of those faces over his
face. It's crazy. It's crazy, though. He was starting games, playing 8 minutes to start each half, and then not getting back into the game. That's nuts.
But you know what? Here's what I don't know why people poke the bear. I don't understand this. Like, why would you go out there? And I'm not naming any names, but why'd you go out there and say that like you're dumb if you held Thomas Bryant, who's got top 90 value over the last month? Like, he didn't get all that top 90 value in the last couple games. He's been a late round guy for pretty much the entire time he's been on the scene.
Yeah, he's actually number 97 on the year, by the way, in 9-cat. That's the entire season and a per game basis. That I think will surprise a lot of people because there have been some ups and downs in there.
In like 12-team public leagues or something, like, and just sort of like scoffing at top 90 guys.
But there were stretches where things looked pretty bleak for him.
Even in those stretches, you're getting late round value. Like, I just don't. I mean, maybe you're playing in like an 8-team league, with a bunch of people who don't ever do any research. Like, to me, like, if you have a top 125 guy who's got pretty much a broken team, broken season, eventually they fall out of the playoff chase, or who knows, he's their only center. It's like the things just sort of stack up and you go, okay, well, if this is the worst I get, okay, I can live with that. And if Scott Brooks comes to his senses and lets this guy play, you got yourself a top 60 guy. It's like simple. But so, yeah, no, I don't understand that. And I don't understand the need to crap on, an entire, I guess, outlook on a player for that. So he's good, for now. We'll see if Scott Brooks goes back to playing, 16 minutes per game. You do at some point have to make choices here. And that's probably a good time to bring up the fact that with about 20 games left, a lot of stuff gets thrown out the window. You're looking at the categories you can improve in roto leagues. You're looking at preparing for the playoffs. In your playoff format, you're looking at your team balance. Does a player's stat set help you? Do you need it? Is it redundant? So you can take probably anything under the top 100, outside of the top 100. You can say, well, yeah, anything out of that is not must-own territory. And then you got to really start looking at that top 80 to 100 and thinking, okay, does it help me or hurt me? Anything over top 80, it's really hard to say that they're not a must-own player, again, because you probably would have to play in a 8-team league for, those players to not add value regardless. But yeah, no, it's good to see that change. And Scott Brooks is known for having very cookie cutter roles. So it's not surprising when Bryant is a starter, he's getting those 8 minutes at the beginning of every half. And then when he moves to the bench, a lot of people were really teeing off on him. No, it makes sense. And it's good for him too, because he's getting away from all those scorers, in the first unit. And I shouldn't say all those scorers, but, trying to get away from Bradley Beal a little bit, staggering from Bobby Portis, which was already kind of happening anyway. But, you're on the second unit, you play against reserves, you can get a few more pick and roll chances. Bryant can stack it up pretty quick, and he shoots free throws well. So, he has that opportunity to have upside.
Yeah, the other thing on the Bryant front, I like that it got him away from Jeff Green as well, because he was sort of the Swiss Army knife on that team. They were happy to just rotate him into the center spot, and then if the timing there worked out, Green could come back into the game and they didn't have to bring Bryant back in. But now with Green, Portis starting, Thomas Bryant's really the only big man they can bring in to spell those guys at the center spot. So his minutes come when the other guys that can play center are resting, so the threat to his minutes is somewhat diminished. Now the question is, can he keep that? He got almost 20 minutes in the last game. He played 30-something the game before that. If he can average a little bit over 20 minutes, then that top 100 turns into a top 90, top 80, that kind of thing. But does it end up dialing back down to 13, 14, 15, 16? And then, like you said, there are choices to be made. Moving along to the next spot, and this is one where I'm a little bit down on the guy. Bryant was one where we're both up. I'm curious your take on Kent Bazemore. It seems like they just don't want to play him when the other wings are healthy. And for me, I'm in a spot where at this point in the year, I got to have a guy on my team that's doing something. I can't sort of afford to sit and hope that Taurean Prince or Kevin Huerter misses a game. Baze looks locked in at about 16 minutes when those two guys are healthy, and so I think I'm out on him right now. He's been great for us for 2 years, but I think maybe his time in the sun has run out.
I'm going to wait on that because he went 0 for 12 in that game. So he's had four games since the break, and he was really frustrated in that game. So basically what you don't ever want to do in fantasy is hold one game against somebody. And when we're looking at trying to figure out, in a small sample size. So Bazemore comes back and you got the All-Star break hanging out and you got the trade deadline hanging out. And it makes perfect sense if you're the Hawks, kind of, sort of. At least it's, it's arguable you go really low on Bazemore and just make sure he doesn't get hurt in case you do get to trade him. You also get to bring him back slowly that way. So we're really looking at the post All-Star break to try to get a sense of where he's at. Is he going to be, a 24 to 27 minute per game guy amidst this group of wings? And so finally in the first game that everybody's healthy, he has a huge stinker. And so, in the middle of that too, you have this Trae Young explosion where they're really just letting him play. And that's not accentuating the strengths of guys like Kent Bazemore and Taurean Prince. So you've got two different things going on here. But what we did see in Bazemore in the games that the other guys were out, he was good. He was putting up numbers, and even his low-end game was kind of a classic Bazemore, still good enough to get you top 75 value type of a line. So I'm not out yet. I'm not out. I mean,
tonight's a big one. Tonight's a big one, I think. With everybody healthy and hopefully him not going 0 for a dozen, tonight could be a pretty good indicator of where he sits the rest of the way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I'm looking at his numbers that have been really, hurting people is he's at 40% shooting and 61 from the line in the last month. So guess what happens when you see that? You see that shooting regression kick in. So it's going to be one of two things. He's either going to survive this, he's going to start making some shots and, get back on that radar, sort of be a top 75. I'm personally hoping for like top 75, top 100. Really disappointed that he got hurt because we were just cruising, rolling, to a top 50 season, and everybody was counting their money. Unfortunately, injuries happen, and in this scene, in this Atlanta scene, it's more painful because they've shown with John Collins, with Taurean Prince, that they're going to sit a guy forever because not only are they tanking, but they're plenty fine developing Herter, developing to a lesser degree Besbris. And Besbris is another guy, real quick. He should be on a lot of people's watch lists right now because you're assuming you're not really hurting in the percentages. You don't matter, or those percentages don't matter as much right now in the year. They're not going to slide an entire season's worth of percentage numbers all over the place. If you're in a roto league, you probably know what you're dealing with. If you're in a head-to-head playoff format, he has this ability to rack up other stats. And if they do turn the page from Bazemore and Prince, he's a guy that would be logical to pick up some stats.
All right, fair enough. Let's bounce to someone that I'm super high on now. Dwight Powell. How about the minutes this guy's put under his belt the last couple of ball games? Is this just the Mavs finally decided to let him go with some of their starters, get him a few good looks, and damn, he looks good in the starting unit.
Yeah, I've been a backer forever, and I have had him on teams. I picked him up when, DeAndre Jordan left town. I actually dropped him right before this most recent explosion.
Yeah, a lot of us did.
I'm competing for another championship in the FBA, and I'm like sitting there going, "Oh crap!" I really thought that was an easy drop, because the numbers have been terrible. And though I think was it our show? I don't know when we discussed this, or maybe it was a weekly lineup show for the premium members that we talked about the potential for bounce back in money counting stats because he's been so empty there. And now he's doing well. I just can't, no matter how good it gets for him right now, I can't erase the memory of the last 2 months. And so I'm both a backer and also, looking at this somewhat skeptically and also wondering what's the Dirk thing going to do to him. And you're starting to hear Dirk doesn't want to necessarily retire. So
yeah, whoops.
All very interesting stuff going on. If you need a big man, take a flyer on him, but that's the best I can say right now.
37 minutes in each of the last two ball games, and I believe the last one was with Dirk playing 21. That's a pretty big deal, and that was a win over Indiana at home, which I know Mavericks not really trying to win right now, but you gotta put one in the W column every once in a while. It has crushed poor Maxi Kleba, though. I know he was okay in that last ball game, but he, to me, is probably someone that we can move on from. It seems like Powell's kind of won that head-to-head battle, if indeed that was going on.
You mentioned some tanking, too. Real interesting in the tanking front. We have teams that are starting to form their own little islands this year. So you've got a tanking battle at the top between Phoenix and New York.
Oh, yeah, the tank bubbles almost.
Yeah, and it'll become important because, like, for example, Atlanta right now, they can't really get any worse. In Chicago, they're winning some games, but they're not projected to win much. They're 4 games behind Chicago in the tank race. So really, they only have to worry about Memphis, who is 2.5 games, and that's a lot. When teams lose this much, there's not that much wiggle room. A win is actually a really big deal. So just kind of like in your minds, you might say, hey, tanking's not as big of a deal, especially with flattened lottery odds. Tanking's not as big of a deal this year as it might be in other years.
It's just that it's been a deal in a different way. And I'm trying to think of the right way to express it. You're right, because like the Suns, Knicks, Cavs, and Bulls And the Bulls are almost placing themselves out of that bottom three lately by going 5-5. Those clowns in their last 10 games, they've actually won a couple, and we'll talk about them in a minute. The Suns are starting to run away with the tank fest, but we can even go bottom three: Suns, Knicks, Cavs. With the flattened odds, they're sort of in their weird group, and then the Bulls are in their own group where, yeah, maybe it doesn't really matter what they do the rest of the way. Hawks and Grizzlies, I think the Hawks are basically in their own pocket. I would almost argue that the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Mavericks, the Wizards, and the Heat are creating their own weird little bubble. And I don't know which of those teams exactly is dumping yet. Yeah, some of them are. That's pathetic.
And those odds, let's look at those lottery odds real quick. You got 14% for the top three each get a shot at the first pick, and then it drops to 12.5, which is right next to 14, 10.5, which is right next to 12.5. So it's like, yeah, there's some ordering there that you look at. Obviously you benefit from the order, but it's just I just think that you're going to see some teams surprise you that play for wins that you don't think would play for wins. You
know what happened this year, and this was something that I don't know that we all expected. Teams tanked early. They pre-tanked. So that way down the stretch, they were like, all right, cool, we're in the bottom three. Let's roll, man. Let's play the young guys. Let's see what happens, and I don't have to worry about it.
Can we talk about Phoenix next?
Yeah, I guess we can. I'm gonna go back to the Cavs and Bulls very briefly. Though that was a pre-tanking with these teams. The Bulls sat half their roster for 2 months to start the year. The Cavs made Kevin Love have surgery that set him out for 4 months. I mean, these teams, they were just like, you know what, let's just lose every game for the first 4 months of the year, and then what we do down the stretch won't really matter all that much. And now we can talk to the Phoenix Suns. They weren't even on my list, but we'll add them because we're talking about tanking teams right now. Phoenix, I think, is doing a wonderful job of tanking. I know that we want them to play Richaun Holmes, but that would not be a good tanking decision.
Yeah, and shout out to the Holmes family for liking and retweeting all of my Holmes tweets.
Yeah, they're awesome, man. They're everywhere.
They're great, and they first of all, I mean, we've said it 5 million times, but whatever team gets Richaun Holmes after this mess is going to get just an incredible steal of epic proportions. He'll probably cost something like 10 million, maybe less.
Yeah, probably less.
I mean, you can nail down your defensive center needs with a cheap and good offensive player as well. It's whatever.
Please go hilarious. To the Lakers. Please go to the Lakers. Please go to the Lakers.
He would actually fit so well with the Kings and make them so extremely dangerous defensively.
Blasphemy! He's going to the Lakers.
You'd have to you would have to put the Kings in the top 4 in the West if you added him. It's funny because nobody in Sacramento listens to me. And they'll probably, like you said, go to the Lakers. That would be great.
That would be
so amazing. Phoenix, though, you're starting to see Devin Booker stuff. Adrian Wojnarowski had his hit job on Robert Sarver, which, that's basically entire probably company is leaking everywhere, saying this guy is a total mess and what we got to do something about this. When the league gets involved, is basically all the stakeholders surrounding a team. This happened in Sacramento with Vivek. The stakeholders go to the league and they say, look at this show, and that's what's going on there. So with Devin Booker, the big toe thing has popped up. You sort of wonder, is he going to try to gut it out for the rest of the season there? You got DeAndre Ayton saying he's going to take the ball from everybody.
Good luck, DeAndre. No one else has had success with that.
It's it's kind of the same old, but you got to hold on to Mikal Bridges really tightly. Josh Jackson just missed a team event. People there to see and get autographs from Josh Jackson. Maybe they're just a big fan of missed shots, but I know, right? And he's actually kind of a good guy, so I feel bad saying that, but he is probably the worst. He has the worst basketball IQ when it comes to shots. And that's where you have trouble, because not only do you have Devin Booker taking a lot of shots, and you got DeAndre Ayton who needs to get his touches, otherwise he doesn't deserve to be on the floor. Josh Jackson gets out there and he's taking 12, 13 shots a game in 20 minutes. And you just run out of shots for everybody, and everybody's bitching at each other. I'm not getting the ball enough. But so he misses a session, and now the coach is in hot water. And probably you've got decisions being made from the owner's box on things like playing time. Who knows? But if you take Jackson out and you take Booker out, you've got Mikal Bridges sitting there who can just go top 50, if he gets completely sort of let loose and they encourage him to shoot.
Lest we forget also one of my claims to fame over the last week and a half, the resurgent Tyler Johnson, who's playing gigantic minutes, and I don't see them shutting him down. So if somebody else ends up taking a seat down the stretch, he could go crazy.
He could, and he's been a guy that's been stuck in Miami in sort of a pigeonholed role, and we've seen him in the past just take the bull by the horns, and that's why we've always been excited in fantasy leagues if he was ever to get cut loose. So he's definitely got mid-round upside at this point. You kind of worry a little bit if he's going to tail off a little bit because he has been so good. But that team's got a lot of potential, and then heaven forbid they play Rashawn, say 22 minutes, and they start winning games.
No, they won't do that. The tank
it's
is
the
on.
slyest tank I've You can't watch the Suns if you don't know this. One last thing before I get back on your list here. So now I've taken out an 8-minute chunk of time on the Suns. How bad are you, as analysts out there, if you don't understand this already? This is so easy to see on a basketball floor that Ayton he's great. He's gifted offensively, but he does not make the team better right now.
No.
And not this team where they're competing for shots the way that they are. His offense is completely nullified. He does not make other players better, and defensively he's not there. And so it's so easy to see that Rashawn is the better center right now. But, I guess we're like one of 10 people on the internet that know that.
At the risk of losing a listener, and I have no idea if this person listened to the podcast, my guess is actually probably not. I saw a tweet flash by a couple hours ago comparing Anthony Davis's and DeAndre Ayton's rookie seasons and claiming that they are similar. That's it.
You know what?
That's it.
There was
Have
so
a
many
laugh.
tweets going on last night in that Denver game, and it just reminded me that we're getting to playoff basketball season, and this is when there's less important games going on. And so people that don't normally watch games, that maybe they're focused on their home team or they're focused on, whatever it is that they do in this league. Now they're all watching the same game and they're trying to weigh in on stuff. Heaven
help us. This is a really bad take.
And my last thing on this is if you position yourself as some basketball analyst, you watch film, you're able to diagram plays, or you're able to do this. Don't be bad at it. You cannot have that as your claim to fame. And then last night, somebody put out a play of Nikola Jokic with 5 fouls, getting torched in the high pick and roll by Donovan Mitchell. And yes, his name's Nikola Jokic is, not a good defender. He's never going to be able to make that play. And he's never supposed to try to get his 6th foul there in that situation. Do not put that play up as some evidence that he's not a playoff caliber center. I mean, the takes are just sort of dripping right now.
Yeah.
But they get worse.
What a time. Basketball Twitter is hard at work today. And recently. All right, let's dive back into the goodie bag. We got about, I think, 15 or so minutes left on the show, so I'll pick my favorites here. Kenneth Faried, that's where I want to go next. Does he have any legs? He got a starting gig, and then he came off the bench. Again, this is after Clint Capella's return. Matchup stuff, I mean, he needs a decent chunk of minutes to sort of get over his statistical limitations. I'm okay with dropping him for somebody who appears to have maybe a little bit more of an upside situation, but I also understand the opposite side. He's good at field goal percent. He's good at rebounding when he can get his 25 minutes. The question I have for you, Brew, is do you think, one, he's going to be healthy anytime soon, and two, when he is, can he actually hold on to 25 minutes when Capella's playing a full complement?
I think the big thing when you look at his numbers is the rebounding. Something has to give. He can't get those rebounds with Capella on the floor. So he would almost be better off staggered from Capella. So if he's in the starting lineup next to him, that might be just another point against him if you're evaluating a tough drop situation. In 26-ish minutes, he's been able to be kind of a top 99 cat guy, probably top 110 and 8 cat. So, you look at that and you go, okay, what if that's 25 or 24 minutes? What if the rebounding gets hit? And then all of a sudden you're looking at what's essentially a low end 12-team guy. So I think he's droppable, in almost any scenario where you're getting a reasonably, well-situated player back. But don't be surprised if he cruises at 125 and, he's useful for somebody out there. If you need to plug a hole, call Kenneth Faried.
All right, here's some names of guys that might be in that same bucket. Teams that are debating between Kenneth Faried and I'll give you some names here, and we can try to run them down. Robin Lopez, Enes Kanter, Joakim Noah. I know, he's on that list. It's crazy. Dario Saric, and then we already mentioned Dwight Powell. Do any of those guys pique your interest over Kenneth Faried? Are some of them underneath him? Maybe we'll just call this a rank fest, and I already forgot all the names I listed. But
you had Robin Lopez in there.
Yeah, I know.
He's a must-add guy, and I was pretty soft on him. I still do have some concerns that, like, right now he's blocking 1.7 shots per game. That's over like the last month. That's pretty damn high. Can he keep that up? Possibly. It's really interesting to know that he's sort of showcasing himself, and at the same time, maybe he's not. We don't know how interested he is in playing for the Warriors, and what does this really do? Like, he gets a buyout, he gets to go play for the Warriors. They guarantee him X amount of minutes, so maybe he's waiting on a guarantee. There's a lot of things that aren't really known to us there. It does seem, however, though, that he might stay in Chicago and just play out the slate. And if he's giving them good minutes and they don't have any other options, there's really no reason he can't continue.
Which they don't. They really don't. They can't play Cristiano Felicio for an entire ball game. It would basically ruin the rest of the offense and defense. And I know you're trying to tank, but you also want your guys to be playing like decent, organized basketball.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things that stand out. He's shooting 3 free throws per game over that span. That's a pretty high number. That's not what you would think, for a guy that doesn't typically participate in the offense so much. But in this offense, he is actually, a factor. It's funny, they have Zach LaVine shooting a lot of shots and sort of sucking the wind out of the offense, but they don't have, real true scoring at the small forward position. I mean, Otto Porter's good, but not great. Chris Dunn, we'll talk about him. I'm sure he's
next.
He's not an offensive guy. So there is a path to him having, these higher than normal free throw numbers. He's, if you look at his career stats, for the last 3-4 seasons, he hasn't gotten up over 2 really. So, shooting the free throws at a higher clip than normal and also making them at a clip more than normal, that might be an area of regression. So he might settle into the top 90, 100, which I'm much more comfortable with. I kind of thought he'd sit in the 120 range, but, obviously playing well. He's a must-add player, though. When you look at somebody at a top 70 level with nothing to stop him, must-add. Enes Kanter, this thing with the immigration issue was sort of an outlier. So
yeah, we'll push that aside.
I'd call it top 100, maybe top 80 even. The other name you had there was...
Let's see, we had Dwight Powell on the list, who we've already talked about. Joakim Noah was on the list, playing behind Jonas Valanciunas.
I'm not as down on Noah as you are, just because it's the Grizzlies and weird things can happen in these situations. He's also very motivated to show the league he can play and maybe, get into another deal. And, you had Ivan Rabb miss a game. So if you squint, you can see the outlines of a JV Noah timeshare that's going to look something like 27 for JV, maybe 28 for JV and 20 for Noah. And if Noah's out there getting you steals and blocks, again, you don't care about the free throw percentage. You don't care about some of the things he doesn't do well. Defensive stats like that are hard to come by at this time of year. So I'm actually on that ride.
What about Dario Saric? I think he was one of the other names on the list. He's cooled off after a hot run, which also came after a cold run, but he's still in the starting lineup and he's still playing close to 30 minutes when he's out there.
Whew, man, I don't know that. I think Cat is sucking the wind out of the offense right now. He's, I'm gonna fade Dario. I can see this going either way though. but I'm going to fade him. Like, I haven't had it even like confidence to put him in starting lineups where I have him, in these very deep leagues. I haven't been able to pull the trigger there just because of the inconsistency. So I would rate Saric at like, top 130 going forward. And I would put Powell probably above him just because I want to have some more interesting upside, because Saric, unfortunately, the body of work this year, I can't ignore it.
Yeah, he hasn't looked particularly good this season. Is Joakim Noah above Dwight Powell for you in that one? I've got him.
He is, though it's really close. I don't think you could like I couldn't be that analyst that screams at you that says that's stupid,
Yeah, there are a lot of them. It is. I've been talking about splitting hairs quite often on Twitter. It's like, all right, well, you got a top 95 guy, and then another guy might be like number 98.
The difference is so negligible. It's pretty funny.
I like Powell just because he's played 37 minutes 2 games in a row. That for me is a tough one to ignore.
And at least he has upside. He's been able to get you top 150 value in like 22 minutes in the past.
And Rolo and Cantor too. I should throw that in there. I was not trying to ignore those guys. I have teams that have like 4 out of these 5 guys on them right now. The other guy on Minnesota I wanted to bring up briefly, and then we'll circle back to Chris Dunn, is Rob Covington, who's now in the G League, and it sounds like his return, I would assume with a minutes cap, is finally close. Okay, so I'm like giddy with enthusiasm, but I also realize he's been out for 2 months. This could be a little bit of a process yet.
Yeah, I think he'll be in good enough shape to play. If he gets back on the floor and, doesn't have anything weird happen, like, I don't think they would put him out there if they didn't think he was ready to go. Tibbs has left the building. So
yeah,
I think
good point.
That the calmer minds have prevailed here. The upside is still there. Like, I rated him really highly in the post All-Star 150, knowing that there was this risk of not playing. And then we didn't see him come back immediately. Now he's coming back. And you gotta own him. I mean, I think that's pretty easy. I guess, where are we throwing the dart on his value? And I would throw it at top 60.
By the way, and we'll talk Chris Dunn in just a second. The Robin Lopez thing, I think today's the buyout window, right?
Well, yeah, he has to be cut by today or midnight tonight.
Okay, so it's midnight
He doesn't have to be picked up by the new team. He just has to be cut.
Okay, gotcha. I wasn't certain on that. I wanted to bring it up before I forgot. Chris Dunn, that's another one worth mentioning. He's been getting cut in a lot of spots, and I can't yell at the people that did it. He's been pretty awful lately. Got off to a decent start with the team. Seemed like things were clicking okay, but he's sitting closer to top 200 over the last month. We heard, and I was watching some of the Bulls bloggers on Twitter talking about how they've tried to stagger him a little bit now, get him away from Markkanen and Dunn, and let him play with some other guys where he can sort of control the basketball, run more pick and roll plays, which you don't see a ton of when he's out there with the other scorers, like you said, the guys like a Levine or a Porter or a Markkanen. I think Lopez you could probably run a pick and roll with, so maybe I won't throw him into that mix. His first game after the migraines wasn't great, but certainly better. 9 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals, a 3-pointer, made his free throws, no turnovers. Is that a sign of maybe something decent to come? I can't bring myself to cut Chris Dunn because, the assists, the steals upside with him is through the roof.
Yeah, basketball is a strange game. Like, there's a big emotional component to it, and so, like, momentum is a big thing. And when he got hurt early in the year, he lost. Keep in mind, Zach LaVine had played, the last X amount of games. It was like 20 games last year, and really like forced the action. And I believe Dunn was out for a lot of those after like hitting his face on the ground. So, this battle for the team's identity has been the thing in Chicago since the year started. At the beginning of the year, you saw LaVine battling with Jabari Parker.
I was going to say Levine battling with nobody, basically. There was no one else on that team.
But it was all of them. Yeah, Justin Holiday out there. All these chuckers were basically battling for their shot. And you would go, I've watched this game where they didn't pass for an entire quarter I mean, it was one of the most insane things I'd ever seen. Like maybe like 5 passes, it felt like. So now you miss all that time if you're done and you come back and the team has already, been given to Zach LaVine. So you're just sort of sitting there on the periphery, and a lot of plays he's being told to go run to the corner. That's his position in the transition offense. So, for those that don't know, how transition offense works, you essentially have a role. So there's a guy that you want to have the ball as much as possible. So like the De'Aaron Fox, if you will, and then if you're not that guy, you get told your job is to go fill the corner, and he's not a stand-up shooter. He's a guy that needs to be in pick and roll. And this team now, once you get rid of a couple guys as they have, you look at Otto Porter, not really a pick and roll player, Lauri Markkanen, arguably a pick and roll, definitely pick and pop, but he's got enough tools to where you could work with him. Robin Lopez, not exactly a pick and roll finisher, though he can do a few things. And then you got LaVine, who once the ball goes into his hands, it never comes back out. So you're really, it's a tough break for Chris Dunn. It's a tough break for us because we were high on him. Obviously getting hurt is nothing we can control over here. But the reality of his situation is staggered minutes is absolutely good for his value. He took this last week, and I thought it was really interesting about the migraine. The team sent somebody out to his house. This, to me, it smelled a little bit of I'm not happy here, and I'm tired of struggling. And you've talked about replacing me and upgrading me. So the writing is on the wall for Chris Dunn. I think they do want to try to see if they can get something good out of him for the last 20 some odd games. So I think they're going to put him in a position to succeed. And that position to succeed is this, hey, you're going to play some minutes with the bench guys. They do need his defense. So I'm optimistic for a bounce back in the top 80 range.
I think I'm going to go to a final topic, and I can't decide between a few teams. So I'm going to let you pick. Here are the choices. The guards in Memphis, Denver's timeshares, and also the fact that it appears to be mostly a sort of a 4-horse team. Is anyone else in New York worth rostering besides the centers? And the Miami Heat, because things have indeed changed with them. Those are our 4 choices. Where do you want to go to finish this one up? Is it the Heat? It's the Heat.
No. I got this.
Okay, what do you got?
So Delon Wright is worth a stash. He's not a mustache player. Avery Bradley's worth owning. The Denver depth is definitely an issue, but I do think you're going to see the original fantasy assets come back to form. I think that game last night is going to be the trigger there. I think that they're going to tighten up that rotation and start to get those guys back in the mix.
Is Gary Harris cooked though?
He's not what he once was. He's maybe a top 90 guy right now. But as far as moving back towards their original starting rotation, I think that's what you're going to see. So Gary Harris probably has upside beyond top 90, but you can't deny the fact that there are so many players that produce and contribute to that team that something has to give. I think Will Barton got back on track. So he's going to probably be, if I had to guess, top 70 going forward. Your question about Miami, there was one other team saying, New York. You know what? New York, I don't care about anybody but Mitchell Robinson there. Everybody else.
You think DJ plays it all the rest of the way?
Which one?
DeAndre Jordan?
I think he's out. Like, I think that they stupidly didn't trade the guy.
Yeah, it was weird.
No, but I do think he's out. If he does return, who cares? Mitchell Robinson gets it done in 20 minutes. They're a total bleep show for every aspect of their organization, top to bottom, and then their players are not going to have any fantasy value either. Your last question, though, about the Heat, I did see you tweet about it. Their box score is getting healthy. Addition by subtraction is occurring. I think that you might see this to be maybe the kind of end of the Hassan Whiteside experience there. If they are in the playoff chase, which they are, they're going to keep sort of putting them out there. But I think they're sort of hedging right now. And that Olenek, Bam Adebayo rotation, which they should have gone with as fast as possible, that I think is going to be valuable. Olenek, I think, has to be owned. Bam is a little bit more of a question mark, but Olenek's upside is too hard to pass up. And then I do like the rest of them as well. So they've gotten healthy there. addition by subtraction.
Yeah, we've always wanted it that way. Where do you think Goran Dragic could potentially end up? Because I'm bouncing between a few different schools of thought on this one. And maybe I'm basing too much of my Dragic hope or outlook on sort of bad Goran Dragic because he hasn't been healthy. If you go back, 2-3 years instead of 1 to 2 years, the upside looks a little bit more, top 90, top 80-ish as opposed to like top 120-ish. Can he climb into that more useful department?
Well, there's a lot of addition by subtraction going on here. I think that they're not connected at the hip to Dion Waiters. So I think he's a guy that could back out. I think that James Johnson, I think he could almost be done. This could be it for him. I don't know if they go back to him, but it'd be hard to justify going back to him. Derek Jones Jr. hurt his knee in the last game, so that sucks because he's somebody that we've been looking at for upside. How much he hurt his knee is up for debate, but he could see at least like low minutes or no minutes going forward. And you go down that list. Yes, Dwayne Wade's going to get a lot of run and a lot of pageantry surrounding his last season, so that's he's not going anywhere. But the rest of them, Whiteside, I think. Again, low minutes, maybe even no minutes, depending on the game or the circumstance. So there's a lot for Dragic to step into here that I think he's 8-cat top 80 the rest of the way. And then if they fall out of the playoff chase, then, all bets are off. But top 100, 110 in a 9-cat format.
All right. There you go. Aaron Bruski, at Aaron Bruski on Twitter. That's easy to do. If you can spell it, you can find it. That's the old rule. I am at Dan Besbris on Twitter. This is Fantasy NBA Today. Another week concluded. Aaron, what you got cooking for the weekend? Anything fun?
No. Yeah, no. Me and the wife are going to go out and do a little date night.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
No, nothing too exciting at Planet Bruski. We're just hunkering down. Getting ready for the stretch run here in a big summer.
That's right.
Stuff.
Big summer of stuff. Hoop ball.
Big announcements coming.
Prizes in the works here at the Great Hoob. Have a lovely weekend, good sir. The weekly lineup show will return on Monday. We, of course, will be back here with Fantasy NBA Today, a reverse chronological lightning round on Monday. You guys know how it all works. Rate and review the podcast. We need it. We love it. We want it. And we will need, love, and want you if you do it. That was
question mark?
Yeah, question mark. Have a wonderful weekend.
How much are we loving them, Dan?
I don't know, man. I gotta go back to the drawing board and possibly get more sleep. We're trying to teach Asher how to use an alarm clock. This is the project right now, and I'll let you guys all in on a secret. It's not going that well so far. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Whatever you may do, as I say on all my play-by-play stuff, do it safely. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.
Don't worry, I'll love y'all.
And Bruski says also, woof, woof.
Arf, arf.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.